I like to teach the world to sing. Sing with me. Perfect harmony. Perfect harmony. I like to buy the world gun and keep it company.
Welcome, everyone, to part 2 of I'd Like to Buy the World a Gun, House of the Dragon edition. I'm Kelton, and I'm joined, as always, by my incredibly good friend, Dread. Dread, how is it going?
Shit's going pretty well. I'm gearing up for a couple conferences. I'm living the life.
But are you betrothed to your cousin yet? That is the real question that we have to ask.
I try to avoid that most days.
Oh, stick with siblings? Got to keep it even
exactly.
pure? You know?
You gotta keep it a lot closer.
Well, I am excited to talk to you because now we have seen the first season of House of the Dragon, the show whose finale was the largest HBO has ever had, except for the Game of Thrones finale. So in terms of a success story for HBO ratings wise, I think it's an unmitigated success. Now, with all of that lead up, I want to ask you, what did you think about season 1, Dread?
I thought it was firmly mid.
There we go. Fantastic.
That in itself is a win.
So that's 2 for 2 on fantasy shows that we have been, for lack of a better term, wrong about. Because I came in thinking it was going to be very bad. And the fact that it was middling is, I think, to its credit. Now, the fact that the showrunner for season 1 has already bailed is not exactly inspiring confidence in the direction season 2 will take, but maybe it's the bad showrunner that left and it's the good one that remains. We truly will not know for another 2 years. So, what were some of your biggest takeaways with this thing?
I think my 3 biggest, I'll do 2 positive, 2 negative, so 4 total takeaways. First positive, actually fairly well cast. We talked earlier in the first episode about how Matt Smith was about as big of a name brand actor they could get.
Yeah.
And I actually think he did a pretty good job. I think that, again, as much as my cynicism of them picking him just for the fact that he was affordable but name brand enough to be recognizable, enough Tumblr super hulock, refugees from the great Tumblr exodus migrated over, that they had a built-in fan base beyond just the normal Game of Thrones fan base. I will also say that the other main leads are fairly compelling. I think Emma Darcy, who plays the older version of Rhaenyra.
Yeah, they're great.
They do a really, really good job, and internet bisexuals everywhere are absolutely in love with them, and we are the most rabid fandom, apparently. So, no, I think the casting was well done. I think the acting is well done for the most part.
Set design, I think also.
Set design very well done. And the other positive takeaway that I'll say is that, I expected them to rush things more than they did.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't, in terms of the overall timeline of the Dance of Dragons.
Okay, I was going to give you a little bit of pushback here, but I'm going to let you continue your points. Don't mean to interrupt.
I think that the season itself is incredibly rushed in a lot of ways. The pacing is very poor. That's one of my takeaways. But the overall, how far they got into the Dance of Dragons, they could have gone a lot further, I think, and it would have been more rushed even. And they showed a little bit of restraint.
I have one question. Again, so sorry for interrupting, but
no worries.
How much of this do you think was because they did not feel confident in this? If they knew that it was going to get this positive a response, do you feel like they would have done the first season being all of the younger cast, and then second season, then the time jump happens, all of the older cast, then season 3 moving forward? Or do you think it was insecurity, or do you think that this kind of was the game plan?
I think it was the game plan, but I think that game plan came from insecurity. I don't think there ever was another game plan where it didn't end the way it did. However, I do think that if they were more confident, if for some reason the previous Game of Thrones, the original Game of Thrones, had ended on a stronger note and they had more brand confidence in the IP, I think they would have stretched the young actors further, especially because the early episodes are very good. And the people they chose to play the young versions of characters were very, very good. and I think we could have spent a longer time developing some of the main and side characters for that. Like, I think there are a few characters that could have been stretched more than the 2 episodes they were part of the show, basically.
Yes. And now moving forward, when we get to Wheel of Time and Witcher and all of that other stuff, God help us as we plunge into the fantasy depths. I am going to start legitimately looking at the casting director. Like, I'm realizing that the cast was a lot of the strength of the past 2. The writing was surprising, but the writing also kind of ebbed and flowed and seemed dependent on kind of who was helming each episode. But the casting director, finding that synergy and finding the chemistry between people really is important, especially at the beginning of things. And so when we're looking at something like this property with House of the Dragon, ironically, I thought that the more it tried to lean into the fact that it was a Game of Thrones related thing, the weaker it was in my head.
Absolutely. And that's actually that's the sort of second negative. If the first negative takeaway is pacing was like, I would say questionable at best. My second negative takeaway is that the strengths of the show were not that it was connected to or related to the Game of Thrones universe at all, but rather in all the ways it wasn't. It is
the long night. Yes, indeed. Yeah, literally one night. Cool.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah, it is in fact like it is in the ways that this is like unique or different. The fact that we have these like, you know, a very different type of still politically strained, but like political dynamic with the Targaryens. They exist in Dance of Dragons, that makes the show interesting. And I think that the parts where you're like kind of waiting for houses, I guess, because you're not really waiting for characters. It's not like Lord of the Rings where you're like, oh, it's that guy. But you're like kind of waiting to hear like a familiar name.
I mean, that is Baratheon, you know, you're like, okay. Right. Gonna get some bloodlines going here. Cool.
And we're gonna get more of that. Like, there's gonna be characters that are coming in the next seasons that are gonna be like, first of all, they're gonna be fan favorites, but they're also gonna connect back to like the main show.
Yeah, I think they found a way to basically we were making fun of it in the first episode about how they had like 5 different pilots. I think they found a way to just do all 5 of those pilots basically just with one storyline, just via time jump. They're just going to keep forward with this House of the Dragon season to season. And we're going to see like the Blackfire rebellions and all that sort of stuff just in this show instead of their own thing, for better or worse. So
absolutely. I think that overall, like, I was pleasantly surprised, with the components of it that make it a show, except for pacing.
Yes. And I think that the pacing issues, I mean, I personally do think a lot of it came from the insecurity of, okay, well, we have to try and find a way to anchor things to this adult cast as fast as possible. Also, let's age up everyone, but Matt Smith won't age a day. We're not going to even like try to make him look older in the season finale than he did when he was already pushing early middle age at the beginning of the show. 20 years go by and he doesn't age a day. Got it.
I will actually, so this is a separate, is it okay to like jump into some stuff? But like, I actually think that like, so one of the consistent themes that Game of Thrones purists, I guess, are going to complain about is the fact that it's like, oh, it's not like the books. It's not like Dance of Dragon book that George R. R. Martin wrote. And the thing that's interesting about the Dance of Dragon specifically is that it was written as an unreliable history. So it's written
by the victors.
Right. Well, it's not only written by the victors, it's written like 150 years later.
Okay. Got it.
Or 100 years later. It's George R. R. Martin writing as a scribe in the world. And so it is inherently an unreliable narrator. And so like there's a lot of people who, so at the end of the last episode or the middle of the last episode, for people who didn't see, Daemon Targaryen, who is the uncle who's fucking his niece.
Yeah.
One point, I want to just remind everyone that.
Yeah. Let's please keep that in our memory banks. That would be nice. Thank you. All the shippers.
And who, by the way, like groomed his niece. Like we should point that out. Like
no, there's no grooming. She just knew him from an early age. One of her first sexual experiences was with him, and then he leveraged that. No, it's fine. And he didn't have anything to gain out of it. What personal motivation would he want to have for marrying the heir to the kingdom when he was the original heir before he got usurped? And what? No, come on now.
Yeah, you're right. I'm totally out of left field here. But the end all be all is in the show, Daemon chokes her. When she is in the process of when he's starting to realize that his attempt to be king is going to be harder, he reacts with rage and eventually he stops. But people on TikTok that are Daemon shippers, people that are big Daemon's oh, it's so out of character, this character assassination. I'm it's very clearly not.
Is it the dude in the opening episode when the tournament wasn't going his way put his lance down to break an opponent's horse's knees and have him fly forward? He's not above fighting dirty, whether on a battlefield or interpersonally. So what are we doing here?
And that's the thing that for what it's worth, I actually really respect about the show. I think the show is more willing to show one of the punches that the Game of Thrones, the original Game of Thrones TV show, was never willing to not pull, was always pulling, was Tyrion. They always wanted to keep Tyrion's likability.
Yeah, roguish charm. Yeah,
exactly. And to the point where one of the scenes he kills the prostitute who he had theoretically loved, who had testified against him in the trial. Mm-hmm. And in the book, she welcomes him with open arms. She says, "I was threatened by your father." And then she doesn't call for the guards. She's very clearly, she's not trying to harm him.
Yes.
And in the show, she attacks him with a knife.
Of course. That's just, how women be, Right.
Women be knifing. But from that premise is the show was incredibly invested in keeping Tyrion's likability for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I respect about House of the Dragon right now is that they are absolutely invested in keeping the general roguish likability of Daemon because they want him to be a selling point up until probably about season 4.
Mm-hmm.
But they were fine with him not being complete. They showed that he is not a good person, and I think that was actually
the gold cloak army, the thin gold line that he was running through the city didn't raise any alarm bells among anyone.
You once again, you have to remember who the core demographic of Game of Thrones in terms of the TikTok audience. They're white, true crime absorbing people, of multiple genders. It's once again, but very much people who are I would say deeply invested in this idea of this character being likable and shippable.
Because he just like me for real. Yeah,
exactly.
I hate the idea. A protagonist doesn't necessarily have to be likable. You can empathize with their point of view and you can understand their character motivations, but you can also fundamentally disagree with them. And you might even find them, I don't know, maybe not cool or not a role model, but you have to, I guess, with Daemon, because otherwise, oh no.
and if anything, that's actually one of the things that I have liked about the show the most is that in many ways the Game of Thrones original show, despite its claim for moral gray and complexity, had heroes.
Yeah, and plot armor.
Right.
As much as they claim anyone can die. It's no, not really.
Right. And this show, Rhaenyra is kind of generically the hero,
mm-hmm.
but and Otto Hightower and Alicent are. Well, Otto Hightower and Alicent for I guess conspiring to marry her dad. It's a very complicated. Her dad's clearly in the wrong. Viserys could have avoided all of this by not marrying a 14-year-old. I just want to remind everybody about this.
Yeah, he could have instead just decided to marry a 12-year-old. That and in the end, that would have been the right call. Just marry her and then wait 4 years before doing anything. You got that time, but he was too worried about an arm falling off and whatever. I will say I do love the show's ability to have the guy who basically orders the death of his wife to try and rip out a baby from her, ends up being like the most likable character on the show. Like, it feels like so many of the, you know, pro Viserys comments I'll see, we've just, I guess as a fan base, completely forgotten the opening episode, like, of the actions he chose. Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's pretty wild in that sense. And again, like, I do think that to some degree that's because we didn't get a chance to linger. Mm-hmm. So, like, I actually think that if we got to spend more time with him, you know, grappling with his actions with a young Rhaenyra, with, like, maybe instead of suddenly coming to terms with her being his heir, he has to go through the process. We start to see that. Like, if they had trusted the IP a little bit more and lingered with the young, I think we actually would have gotten a more, like, complex Viserys. Instead, we get kind of bumbling fool Viserys who you feel bad for at the end because he sees, like, his blended family being happy for one day and then it all falls apart.
It's like, this is why we can't have nice things. Oh, I suck. I hate this. I also shouldn't have been king in the first place. So maybe this is like karmic retribution in some capacity, but you know, that's nothing against the actor, of course. Like, I think the portrayal of Viserys was amazing. I think the makeup that was done was also amazing. Mm-hmm. I was just thinking Emmy nom for several episodes. I'm like, okay, you're going to keep up the streak in that front, HBO, of prestige television, as it were. But talking a little bit though about like the namesake of our podcast that we have here.
Absolutely, I've had a lot of thoughts about that.
Okay, here's my question to you, because I'm going to come out right in the open and say it. The fact that this show is set 200 years, essentially 170 years before Game of Thrones, and it took them 170 years, longer even, like 180 years, for them to realize, what if we shoot a giant spear at a dragon? That might kill the thing.
Look,
no. Otto Hightower, it didn't cross his mind to think maybe we should invest in giant spears on the wall. Like, come on now, as a show.
So, I'll say two things. Wait till season 3.
And
then the other thing I'll say is, I think that in a certain sense, it's been a mutually assured destruction thing, where everyone just assumed that the people who have dragons would never quarrel amongst each other, because that would be the stupidest goddamn thing you could ever do. Like, wow, what if everyone who had a nuke just decided it was time to fight?
Yeah, that would be crazy. It would be so weird if that was like our geopolitical situation.
Exactly.
I mean, there's no like nuclear capable country that tested 10 missiles earlier today. We don't have to think about dragon eggs have been stolen to make the fantasy heads happy, I guess. I truly do think though, you give me one giant crossbow on a boat and you can still take out these things. Like, they don't seem any more dangerous than the other dragons. And so
there's like the one super dragon.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I understand that. That means I have to build a super giant crossbow.
Right,
though.
exactly.
Yeah, like, that's the arms race here.
So I actually want to go back to something that you said earlier, and that was, I think you could defeat this world with one well-timed therapy session.
That's definitely the right answer. Yeah.
And if we do have to go to actual war, I think a little mustard gas in that one chamber where the old queen, the queen that never was, could have just ended it all. That also would have done it. Like, it is at any point not hard to end this war.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, as we will find out,
it just keeps going and going and going and going. Yeah. I mean, just with the way these characters are presented, with how complex they are, that then like they don't have this moment of catharsis at all. Like that, the writers, and I guess to the show's credit, they have to work around that hurdle. Because to be like, oh, well, they should just all hash it out. I guess that doesn't make for like compelling TV if we watch Dragon Therapy 4 episodes. On the other hand, compelling for 7 episodes, I think. Limited series, Dragon Therapy, only on HBO.
Yeah, Dragon Tales, exactly. and to that end, like, I would actually say in a larger sense that, like, the quote-unquote solution to winning a war in this world is not superior arms, it is smarter deployment of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a little bit of like, yeah, no, duh. But it also is just true. Like,
yeah.
You could take over this world with just really well thought out resources.
I did have one question for you as we're thinking about weaponry and things. House of Valerion, the seaside of how, from that, I guess, the Valyrians. So I'm not, again, I'm sorry. I'm still kind of shaky on that side, but.
So the TLDR is that the Baratheons, the Valyrians, and the Targaryens themselves are all descended from Aegon the Conqueror, who's the William the Conqueror sort of like stand-in, and his 2 sister wives.
Okay, cool.
And like depending, like basically main family, branch family. So like in the original Game of Thrones, the reason why Robert Baratheon, has a claim on the throne is because the Baratheon line is descended from the Targaryens.
Okay.
Similarly, the Valerian line is descended from the Targaryens, and like that's the idea behind it. There's a shred of legitimacy.
Well, there goes my theory, because my thing I was hoping for, I assumed it wouldn't be true, is that if the Targaryens had control of not dinosaurs, of dragons, but they're in the sky and Valyrians were of the sea, it would be
so cool,
right? If they had like Cthulhu monsters that then they could summon from the depths of the sea. I think.
Or sea dragons would be the coolest thing, but like Cthulhu monsters are pretty determinately the purview of the deep god.
Okay, well, I guess the spin-off opportunity, HBO, huh?
But no, I think so ultimately, the control of dragons of it all does become a plot point later on, like the fact that the Valerians can. So right now we've only seen I didn't want to say 6 dragons total.
Yeah.
So we've seen Caraxes, we've seen Vahira.
I wish I could help you out with these names. I'm just like, yep, that one.
Yeah,
and that
we've seen Dreamfire, who got eaten.
R.I.P. to a real one. Oh, that reminds me. With these the children of Rhaenyra, the strong boys, spoiler, blah blah blah. Their father was supposed to be like the most yoked man in the whole kingdom, right?
Yes, and they're like twigs.
Yeah. What is that part of the books as well? Because I thought it would be, the fact that they didn't look anything like their quote unquote dad, I think was enough of its own way, I suppose. But I was hoping that they would look just like, I don't know, fucking linebackers, basically. And it would be like, oh, okay, like they're formidable in their own way. Like they might not be Targaryen all the way, but like, Jesus Christ, like that older son could still crush someone's skull if they wanted to.
In the books, the only reason why people have that assumption is because they're brunettes instead of blonde.
Okay, got it. Well, I mean,
it's just like not that well. Like they're still kind of twinky people. It's like,
well, that's I guess good for them being accurate to the books. I just would have assumed it would be kind of like Amon-Ra St. Brown, right. Not for a sports reference, but like the fact that like his father was a Mr. Universe kind of guy. And you're like, well, of course then his kids are going to be pro athlete level types. It's the same thing with like Lord Strong. Like I'm not expecting like Mr. Universes to pop out, but starting NFL wide receiver level talent is kind of what these strong boys should be. And I just didn't get that vibe from them whatsoever.
Yeah, it's just kind of not set up that way. I don't know. Like
it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's also, I mean, I'm sure probably 2 seasons from now with the next time jump, it's not going to even matter because they could make one turn into like a very strong kind of dude, but who knows, ultimately with it. I do like how all of the Dragon Cold War is being set up right now. I like Damon's math of where he's saying like we outnumber them like 18-6 or something. But like he in his math, he was assuming that all the dormant dragons and all of the dragon eggs would go to them.
Right.
Which is just, it's a very good insight, I think, into the character of Damon. That's like, cause yeah, we'll just take them. You know, if anything kind of left to chance, we'll just brute force our way into having that be on our side.
Right. And so like one of the major pieces that he mentions is Vermithor, who's like one of the riderless dragons, that in theory they have access to. And like, this is a big thing to your point, is that he's assuming that they can find a rider for, or somehow cow this like old dragon. And that's just like a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
Now,
Damon, come on now.
Yeah. Also, I think one of the things that we see in the last episode is that not all dragons are equal. Like, like if you have an ancient senile dragon the size of a flotilla versus like a skipper of a young dragon,
yes,
it's not an even fight.
No, not at all. I love how it just like torched its eye, and you're like, oh shit, and then you realize like all it did basically was the equivalent of singeing an eyebrow. You're like, this isn't gonna go well for the little one.
Right.
Oh no. I also like seeing them as animals. That was really cool to witness. Of just like,
I actually think that like another thing that the show has done well is this idea that like kind of dispelling, not fully, but kind of dispelling this idea that like Targaryens are so special that they can magically control these dragons.
Yes.
When in like there's not a psychic connection. They're just good animal tamers.
No, not even. I'm going to go one step further. They have employed good animal tamers, and you know they just kind of do the fruition of that. It's like, I mean, it really did go from, like you were talking about, like the psychic connection that they have to the equivalent of someone just kind of having a horse that does dressage. You're like, okay, cool. Like you just, you own a horse and you have a barn, but there's a whole staff doing their own thing. That's the actual upkeep of the dragon.
They really are the horse girls of the sky. The
flowing manes too, yep. It lines up all the way through, I think.
No, I think that's a really astute observation, is like, and I think it's better this way because it does.
Yes.
It does. I actually think one of the best things about the Game of Thrones universe is when it decides not to be high magic, and instead decides to be like mid to low magic.
Yeah.
And
almost like it's more compelling. Yeah.
Right. And this definitely like does that. And the very specifically the fact that these theoretically chosen one dragon riders can just be like completely unable to control their giant reptiles rocks.
Yeah, absolutely. That I thought was very cool. I'm not sure how it is portrayed like in the history book that you were referencing earlier, but when
so in the go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say when Aemond obviously is kind of like a hot shot. It's like an 18-year-old with a motorcycle.
Yeah,
it's
he's
just
the Alucard to Damon's Dracula, by the way. Just literally just throw the D on the other side.
It's perfect. It's perfect. And so when Aemond is riding this giant dragon and thinking that he's hot shit, and then when the dragon decides to act like a dragon and eat the other dragon, and then also by proxy then his cousin / nephew, and realizes like, oh shit, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just a kid on top of this nuclear warhead, essentially. It was a very fun character moment because it did not make it seem malicious. It kind of, I mean, it seemed malicious in the sense of he wanted to maim his nephew, but he didn't actually want to kill him. And upon realizing that, was very like, oh shit, oh fuck, oh god. Please don't tell mom.
Yeah, and that's actually another thing that like quote unquote book purists are very upset about. They're like, oh, I wanted my in the book, Aemon does just kill his nephew. He sees him at Storm's End, and he's like, well, you're gonna die. And I think the show handles it better. I think it's actually a much more interesting character moment. It also allows him not to be just like a kind of cartoonish villain.
Mm-hmm.
like obviously he has been set up as an oppositional to the Rhaenyra side of things, but like now we get to see him as like, you know, he's in a fucked up situation too, and he probably shouldn't have been trying to torment his cousin nephew thing.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter now because he's dead. You know, Lucerys is dead.
Exactly. And I think with it being so far out from the Game of Thrones world that we were previously introduced to, it's interesting to see the ancestors almost like having the deck shuffled of where the alliances are slightly different. You see the traits here and there, like the actor who is heading up House Lannister. I thought that was very cool, where you basically in the background are witnessing the rise of House Lannister, just by being the guy in the room, essentially. And like, oh, well, I didn't get to marry the princess. That doesn't matter. Okay, cool. I'm now heading up the treasury. Awesome. Like, and you know what the steps are going to be, that leads to that particular incest level, I suppose.
Future incest.
Yeah. But no dragon allotment in that capacity. So that's not cool. Can Baratheons control dragons? Theoretically, at least?
In theory, like, once again, it like, this show calls into question the idea of the magical connection in the first place.
Yeah.
But yes, in theory, like the dragon blood would theoretically be strong enough to control a dragon. Maybe, probably not.
Okay.
It's like a cousin of a cousin kind of thing.
Got it. My next question is, this is time jumping way ahead. How hot is young Robert Baratheon going to be?
This will not happen in this show.
Oh, you don't think so? Like,
no, not confirmed. Not. Robert Baratheon exists 25 to 30 years before Game of Thrones, not 150 years.
I thought that they were going to keep time jumping with the show, like all the way through, and then get to the rebellion at some point. But
they'll get to the Blackfire Rebellion, but they will not get to the Roberts Rebellion in this show. Man.
Okay, well
House of the Dragon is going to be solely focused on Dance of Dragons.
Man,
sorry to disappoint you.
That's okay. That's okay.
He would have been very hot. Young, we are going to meet some hot people pretty soon, though.
Well, that's nice. That's all I can hope for. I'm basically just saying we were robbed of the opportunity of like the svelte 6'4", super strong kind of guy, and we got twinks instead. So yeah.
And the Baratheons that you're going to get in this show are all going to be assholes.
Well, shocker that right. These Baratheons.
I will say, so the character that you're going to see next season that everyone's going to fall in love with, maybe not from a hotness perspective, but it's going to be everyone's favorite character off and on, though he's kind of a side character, is a Stark.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Gonna be, grandpa of Ned, I guess, or great grandpa.
Great grandpa.
Nice. Cool.
Or Cregan Stark. The White Wolf of the North.
Great. I can't wait for that. all these names. I know. It's going to be fun.
So what is it? It's Cregan, who has a kid named Rickon, who has a kid named Sansa, who has a kid named Serena, who has a kid named
The Trail Runs Gold.
I don't know. It's some number of greats grandfather Stark.
Sure.
But
sure.
So I will actually say one thing that will be exciting. The way the North is presented in House of the Dragon is very different than in Game of Thrones.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
So one of the groups of Northmen that we're going to get acquainted to at some point are effectively a wandering army of old men and brigands that exist solely because when the winter gets bad, they don't want to be a mouth to feed.
Okay. Interesting.
So their goal is to die in the South.
Okay.
So you're going to have like a 2,000 person suicide army.
Not the worst, honestly. Like if we can get like emo men of the North kind of thing.
Well, it's not even emo. It's like it's like nihilist. They're like, yeah, we're going to die. So like, I don't care if I lose an arm in this battle.
That's metal as hell. That's so dope.
Yeah, it's gonna rock. They are. I like unironically, they will be the best characters.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. What are we? Some kind of Suicide Squad? Can't wait for that group to come in. Episode directed by James Gunn, maybe. Who knows?
I shit you not. Like that will probably be the most likable characters we get that we have not already
We're
met.
gonna watch them all die so hard. Gonna get to know them, and then they're just gonna get picked off. Yeah, it'll be cool. I don't know. It feels weird to just be like, this show. It was. I think it was better than I thought. It was underwhelming. Season 2 is happening in 2 years, and I guess I'll be watching it. So, I know a lot of people liked Rings of Power more than House of the Dragon, and I think that those people are insane.
Yeah, I will say this as somebody who has now watched both. Rings of Power was a profoundly worse show, and I don't mean that in like a negative way, except in a very negative way.
Yeah, I mean, they basically with this show said, okay, we're going to be Game of Thrones, except for when we're not, but it's more of the same that you like season 3 era Game of Thrones. You like that? Cool. Yeah, that's what we'll be.
I very much think that in the end, this show will probably have. So the nice thing about this show is that George R.R. Martin has already written the nominal ending, and also the two like D&D or whatever their names were from the original Game of Thrones are not directing it, and they're absolute hacks. So like anyone short of an absolute hack is going to be doing a little bit better. But I do think people are going to be like feeling let down by the ending because the most of the characters that people give a shit about will die before the end.
Yeah, it's going to be new cast and new everything, I would imagine. Just the turnover rate for it. And so it's going to be interesting, I think, to also kind of see how we as an audience are willing to let go, I guess, and go, oh, well, are we willing to actually accept new cast members, new characters, where I'm not sure, you would know much better than I, but the turnover rate by the end of the show, I mean, who could be left standing with these?
I won't. I mean, like you can read this
like percentage wise.
Oh, it's going to be so what are they? Like, there's probably right now 20 characters we care about.
Yeah,
total. Let's say 20 tops. 2 of those maybe.
Yep.
So, tops, and I'm including characters that we've like referenced, but like haven't really got into it. Like, but that's the thing about this is that it's like this is a multi-year war that like just spirals out of control. It is. I'm hoping that we get some of the side stuff. So like the Dornish, like the rebellion in Dorne, like some of the other false kings,
yes,
like would be very cool.
I think if the showrunners know what's good for them, they're going to absolutely do that. And weirdly, it's in HBO's best interest to continue to kind of like spin their wheels to make this as bloated a show as they possibly can. But by being bloated, that means getting into all of the surrounding aspects and making it a more intricate show.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like almost objectively true that like the more they kind of dawdle, the better the show will flow.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I'm just really excited to end up seeing some people die, willing to see some dragons, willing to see like I would assume at some point, because I know I forget who first kind of laid it out, but like the fact that Viserys, it didn't even cross his mind to have Alicent's kid, his granddaughter, marry his daughter's son, one of the strong lads, like at the very beginning, just to unite the houses, and then you're done with it. Massive oversight on his part to prevent that.
Yeah, once again, like ultimately this goes back to when he decided to make Rhaenyra his heir. He should have not remarried. He should have, he should be, I guess, empowered to have extramarital affairs and have bastards in that world, but he should not have had official heirs. Yes. He definitely should not have had official heirs with the daughter of his, like, most insidious and clever
the number 2 man of the king. Yeah, the president's wife has died. The president has now married the vice president's daughter, and everything is fine. Also, we didn't vote for this president. That's the self-announced. Yeah. It's not the best case scenario for him, but
yeah, if I gave the first season of Lord of the Rings like a 6.5 or 6 out of 10.
Oh wow, that's
Like,
more generous. Okay.
I would probably give it like a 5.5 now, but like around there, I would give this like a solid 7 to 7.5.
Yeah, yeah, I think 7 is good. I would put Lord of the Rings at like a 4, but I just hated the Hobbit storyline that led nowhere. Like that was
I liked the dwarf storyline enough.
the dwarf was fine. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would love more time with the I don't know, the storyline that's going to carry forward into the next season instead of the big time waster. Like imagine if there was isn't there someone I think there is in the Game of Thrones world that's like not the prince that was promised, but is like he's like a Targaryen who lives across the sea or something, and it's like, oh, we don't know if like is he gonna be the chosen one?
Oh yeah, that's Aegon. That's once again from Robert's Rebellion. So that's 150.
Oh
years
yeah. No, I'm just saying, like it would be like if they were teasing that in this show the whole time. And they're like, we're going to spend a third of our show talking about this guy, and then we're not going to pay it off, and then we're going to move forward. We would say that was kind of pointless. And I think that's exactly what they did, talking about a character whose big reveal is not going to come forward until the next age that takes place, so to speak, with Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. So
yes, I think that is a fair critique. And also, like, I would just say generally, like, these two shows both represent, in my opinion, like two very different desperate moves around streaming as a concept.
Yeah.
Because like, even though technically Game of Thrones is not a primary streaming show, it is technically a primary television show.
Mm-hmm.
It really is like, it is the success or failure of Game of Thrones is going to be a referendum on streaming.
Yeah.
As is this success or failure of the Amazon Lord of the Rings show.
Someone's already been fired, so you know.
Right. I will say, like, I think that the HBO Warner Brothers like apparatus as a whole is clearly in a state of flux, and like there's not good stuff going on. But I think they're going to get the full 5 seasons of this.
Oh yeah, long shot here. I think they're going to push for 7, or I truly think that like around season 3 or 4, they're going to try and extend this out as much as they possibly can.
I think instead of doing that, we're going to get a second spin-off around season 4.
Boom.
So it'll be,
I mean, you're right.
The every other year. So you'll get, 1 year of House of the Dragon, 1 year of,
Dorne.
Doom of oh, yeah. Dorne with Timothée Chalamet. or like Doom of Valerian.
Yeah. Yep. I think, we knew that you enjoyed the prequel show, but now we have a prequel
to the prequel. It's the prequel.
Just keep on going back and back and back and back. I could see it. I mean, honestly, like Doom of Valyria, I know that we were making like some Superman jokes last episode about, with Valyria falling into the family, taking refuge, shooting their kids over. But I do think that would also be a compelling show in its own capacity.
100%. Like
I could picture the intro now. It's going to be all of Viserys's little model work that he did. That's going to be the camera following through on the ground level of that.
And I will say also that, like, ultimately the end all be all is that this is a proof of concept that this IP can extend beyond the original Game of Thrones show.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. So how long until the sequel series, like to the Game of Thrones world? Like,
I think it will take until George R. R. Martin dies.
Really? Okay. He hasn't led on with anything about what would happen afterwards?
No, he hasn't even finished what happened technically in his version of things.
Oh, I thought he had the outline, but again, he does far more.
He does have the outline, but like, so here's the running theory that I think is pretty accurate, is pretty probable, is that he told the two showrunners where it was going to end, which is going to end with Jon killing Daenerys, but didn't like have the rest of it super planned out.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, now he knows what way not to go. So
yes, 100%. And he's still 3/4 the way through the book before that.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll buckle up for the long haul for it. I think, and this is like my conspiracy brain, and I'm sure people have already thought of this, but I think it would be interesting if, in a show where there's a tell of a lot of false prophecies, or how a prophecy interpreted one way can be true, but another way can be false, if it just is revealed that the real prophecy is still in the future. Like, it's a bit of a cop-out, I understand, but if they were to say, like, oh, you thought that was the long night, but it actually wasn't, it's XYZ, you push it down the road. I understand it would make a lot of fans mad. I just feel like that's the natural evolution for a TV executive pitching a show.
And like I said, I think that if we're going to get sequels to the original Game of Thrones, we already have one actually confirmed. There is one. There's the John Beyond the Wall show coming out.
You're fucking kidding me. Oh my God.
I think that's already confirmed, is that we're getting a show about a wildling show.
Great. Can't wait for the wildlings.
Sorry.
So I hated those people.
I guess I was wrong earlier. So for the people yelling at me about 2 minutes and 35 seconds ago in the podcast about how could I forget about that? That's because that is such a profoundly forgettable concept. Like, the one good part of the original show's finale was John getting to go off and, I guess, find a new wildling to fuck.
Yes, that's exactly
probably
right.
Torbjorn or whatever his name was. Tormund, Giantsbane.
Because it definitely won't end with him and Sansa hooking up, right?
God,
definitely not.
I hope not. Specifically, I hope not for her career, that actress's career, just because, like, she's moved on to bigger and worse things.
I was about to say Jean Grey from the X-Men.
Bigger and worse.
God, yeah. At least they're trying to have it still be TV show spin-offs, not like Doctor Who, where they're just kind of going like, well, David Tennant's back. We're going to do 3 movies in a year. Yeah, this is what you people want, right? Yeah. And then move on to the next Doctor. So.
And again, just to finish off with, like, the core premise of this, your crossbow idea, I think, works. Talk therapy also works.
That will be undefeated.
Right. Or a single nuke.
I like the mustard gas in the bedchamber idea too.
Thank you. Just, like, legitimately, you could completely have ended it. They are not that organized. Yeah, that's the other thing. It's like, they're not good at the ruling the kingdom part of things.
Mm-hmm. I guess technically we could have also said one vasectomy would have.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, that's that should be the specific title. How one vasectomy could have saved the realm.
It would have been
Genuinely.
Game over. Just
that's the thing. If Viserys could have remarried, but if he had a vasectomy, none of this shit would have happened.
Yeah. That would have been. Imagining the maesters just trying to reverse a vasectomy afterwards. It is amazing that as his body was falling apart, like, that one part of him was still going and surviving somehow.
Antibiotics. That's the other thing that you could have saved this show. Like, if this guy who was getting cut by all this stuff, or better clothing, like, if he didn't get, like, completely dissolved by the throne, would have been great.
If OSHA existed in the time of
or just sit somewhere else. Put a chair on top of the throne.
A pillow. No one's gonna judge you.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like well, actually, a lot of people would judge him.
They'd be like, look at Viserys. How could he do that?
Well, so the whole idea is that if you are unworthy of the throne, it cuts you.
Yeah, well, I mean, 1 for 1, I guess, with that. Proving the haters right with that one, Viserys.
Oh, seriously.
I'm just picturing Otto sharpening all the swords on the chair.
Exactly. Yeah, seriously. But yeah, the end all be all, so to speak, is that don't get what I would consider to be like throne herpes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in general, if you're starting to turn into a zombie, at the very least, start using last names when talking to people. That way, then there's no like Aegon confusion. That would be cool.
Oh my god! just name your kid something else.
Yeah,
name your kid something else. Name your kid Bill.
Sam.
Yeah, and that way, nobody's going to confuse Bill as the child of prophecy.
He was billed as Aegon. Yeah, see, that's that's what it was. It stood the test of time. But wow, I think I'm going to go ahead and call that then as an episode. Dread, we have cracked this case wide open. We have dismantled yet another fantasy world. With the gift of therapy, with the gift of last names, with affirmative healthcare options and birth control, we are salvaging this thing. It's going to be great.
Even condoms would have done it.
Oh, honestly, yeah. There's a lot that you could do. Little like dragon intestine condoms, probably. That's got to be a thing, right? That they use. Anyways. Again, just thank you so much. We'll be back on in 2 years, I guess, to talk about this show. So that'll be exciting.
What's the miserable show we're hitting next, by the way?
God, I don't know yet. I don't know. I am waiting for them to announce when Wheel of Time season 2 is actually going to release, and they aren't. They're like, it could happen in November, or February. Like they don't know yet, and so we don't know. But it'll probably be Wheel of Time is my next guess, at least.
I'm glad that when we talk, it's always about something awful. I'm sure this won't warp our friendship whatsoever.
No. I mean, we could focus on like inherent positive things, like my local sports teams, the Houston Astros, who I assume are doing incredibly well, or the Houston Texans that are, I'm sure, also not having their wide receivers tweet out like they're members of House of the Dragon, making veiled threats to things at all. No. It's fine.
It could be worse. We could be the people reviewing the gritty Powerpuff Girls reboot that's coming around.
Oh God, no, I'm not ready for that. I can't. That would be a special episode, because it'd be, if I could buy the world a gun to put in my mouth, would be. And then it's just us talking about why we shouldn't do that. That would be
me talking you off the ledge.
Exactly. Much different premise, much higher stakes, though. I think would be. That episode didn't come out. Oh.
Or episode 1 did, but the follow-up never did. That's deeply concerning.
Well, awesome. So, in the meantime, where can people find you right now, Dread? What's going on in your world?
So I'm at Dread _ Botlord on Twitter. And what's up at my world right now is mostly inevitably waiting for the Houston Astros to succumb to the team of destiny, so that I can, see what happens to my friends in Philadelphia and see if they survive whatever chaos will come of that city.
Winning the World Series, the Eagles then going 17-0. The city is burnt. It is now just a kingdom of bone and ash, as they would say.
Look, Mad Max Philadelphia is an exciting opportunity. And other than that, I, just, if you can, donate to your local mutual aid funds, your charity works, people that help people. We're the only people who help each other.
Yeah, then that's fantastic. You're saying we can't rely on, I don't know, like some ruling class that with access to massive weaponry to help us out of these tough situations?
I don't trust these inbred fucks as far as I can throw their dragons.
I'm glad you said dragons, because otherwise I would think that you were just, talking about the ruling status that we have.
Yeah, exactly. Those inbred fucks.
Well, for me, just follow us on Twitter if you aren't already. It's at Dolphin Garage. You can kind of see what all we're gearing up for. We're slowly becoming an RPG podcast of some kind. So can't wait for that.
I'll have to run a one shot for you sometime.
Please. Honestly, it's so much better than just me talking about a bad movie. I think everyone would have a lot more enjoyment.
Oh God, is that the thing we're going to be reviewing next? Is it the D&D movie?
Oh no, I hope not, but also I kind of hope so. I think that would be great to do. Be like, oh, wouldn't you know it, D&D, but with Marvel dialogue. Isn't this hilarious and unique? Huh? This is awesome. Oh, I can't wait for someone to be like, a Minotaur. Well, that happened. Oh, I want to meet that guy's parents. Just...
From your lips to God's ears.
All the bloodless violence that, of course, exists in D&T. Famously, right?
Perfect.
All right. Well, without further ado, bye, everyone.